This video's focus is going to be on elements, compounds, and mixtures. An element is only one type of particle. They are found on the periodic table. So an example would be boron, whose symbol is capital B, or nitrogen, whose capital is N. Okay, so all you are talking about is one, whenever you see like a formula or anything like that, it would only have one capital letter. Okay, because an element is written as one capital letter followed by sometimes all like through one or two other lowercase. So if you saw N or B, or let's say a C with a little o, okay, these are all different elements because we have one element, one type of particle. This is cobalt, we have nitrogen, we have boron, okay? So it's found just strictly on the periodic table, then that would be considered an element. A compound is two or more types of particles that are chemically combined. Okay, so two or more elements that are combined to make a formula. So if you see a formula like Na and Cl, okay, that would be considered a compound because you have two different elements that are bonded together. Okay, so if you have C2 capital letters, that would be considered a compound. If you see a word and it's like an element followed by a word that you basically don't really understand at this point, like you could see magnesium, which is an element that you kind of should be familiar with, at least of the name, and then if you saw like sulfate, okay, that is a compound. You don't have to know anything more than that, but that would be a compound. The formula for magnesium sulfate is Mg with a capital S, a capital O, and a 4 after the O. So what that's telling me is that there's actually 1, 2, 3 different elements, and I know that because I see multiple capital letters. And a mixture is an assortment of elements and compounds. You could have two compounds, you could have two elements, but the key word is that these are not bonded together. They're not bonded together. And how you'll see that in the words is that you'll see one compound, so NaCl, and then you'll see that word and, or you'll see like a formula or a symbol for and then another compound. Okay, what that's saying is that Na and Cl are bonded together. That's why they're right next to each other. And H2O, that hydrogen is bonded to that oxygen. But the NaCl is not bonded to the H2O. That's why you have the and. Okay, so if your letters follow right after each other, that means that it is a compound because they are bonded. Whereas if you have an and or a comma or anything like that that's spacing up those elements, then that's showing that it is a mixture. All right, so let's try to draw a particle picture of an element, a compound, and a mixture. So we've got an element. Okay, I'm going to draw one single element. Okay, here we go. That's that's elements. Okay, now we've got a compound. So a compound has two or more elements chemically bonded. Okay, so notice that those are two different ones. All right, you got that. We'll do one more. So those are compounds, okay? And sometimes maybe even you'll have another element added to it. So it could be 3, right? That would still be a compound. Notice that they are touching. These particles are touching. If they are touching, we consider that a compound, okay? Because they are bonded. Elements, they would not be touching, okay? And then you've got mixtures. And mixtures are combinations of elements and compounds, or elements of compounds, or elements, or like two different elements, or whatever. It's all these different variations. So I'm going to draw 3 different variations that you might see. So this would be a mixture of elements, right? So we see different elements all over the place. And I know they're elements because they're not bonded to each other. They're not touching. Okay, so that's a mixture of elements. We've got a mixture of compounds. Okay, notice that those are different. These guys are the same, so that would be just a pure compound. But because I added that guy in, now it's a mixture. And now I'm going to add a mixture of elements and compounds. And the key for this is when you're choosing whether it's an element or compound, it's either one or it's the other. It's not like this guy, there are no elements because they're all bonded. So we would consider this no elements. Now they're made up of elements, but we don't actually count them. They are now considered compounds. So this would have 2 different compounds found in in it, okay? We wouldn't be in 0 elements. That's how you guys would say that, okay? This guy up here has 3 different elements, okay? Now this guy down here, okay, what we're going to do is still making some of these. Okay, this guy down here would have, let's see, it would be a mixture of elements and compounds. Here are my compounds. I'm going to circle them in red. 1 compound, 2 compounds. So those are 2 compounds, but they're the same. Nope, those are different compounds. So those are 2 different compounds. So it's made of 2 compounds, 2 different compounds, and the other guys are elements. So there are 2 different elements. All right. And then now we've got elements, molecules, and compounds. We're throwing in a new term of elements. And elements, the key is that it's all the same type of particle. A molecule must have a bond, but they can be the same element or different elements. And a compound must have a bond and be made up of 2 or more different elements. Okay, so let's look at this. So let's look at these 3 structures and try to define them. Okay, the first one is definitely going to be an element. Okay, why is it an element? Because it's all the same type of particle. And both molecules and compounds need to have bonds. I don't see it connected to anything, so I know that those are not molecules or compounds. The next one is an element. Why is it an element? Because it is its key is it's all the same type of particle. Now the other thing is that it is also a molecule. So this is an element and a molecule. Okay. Why is it a molecule? Because it has a bond. Okay, so elements can have bonds. They don't always need them though. Molecules need bonds, but they can be the same element or made up of different elements. And then the last one is both a molecule because it has a bond, and it is a compound because it is made up of 2 or more different elements. All right. Hopefully you have a basic understanding of elements, compounds, mixtures, and molecules. Have a great one.